Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Yasmina Greco. I'm with O'Reilly Media, and I will be your host for today's webcast. Today, folks, we have a real treat for you all. We have Lesa Snider with us, and she's going to talk to you about Photoshop's content-aware features. Lesa is an internationally acclaimed author and speaker, and she's on a mission to teach the world to create better graphics. She's the author of several books, including the best-selling series Photoshop, The Missing Manual, and co-author of iPhoto 11, The Missing Manual. Lesa is a founding instructor for CreativeLive.com, where she teaches image editing, graphic design, and stock photography, as well as a regular columnist for Photoshop User, Photographic Elements Techniques, and Macworld magazines. She's also a stock photographer, a longtime member of the Photoshop World Dream Team of instructors, and captain of her very own Prometheus class starship. Folks, we're really excited to have Lesa with us today to present this webcast for you all. All right, as we get the event started, I'd like to go over a little housekeeping to help you get the most out of today's webcast. First, you'll want to open your group chat widget if you haven't already done so. This is where we can interact with each other during the event and where you can submit your questions for Lesa. We find that our audience usually has a lot of good knowledge to share, so we encourage you all to chat freely during the event. However, if you have questions for Lesa, please be sure to preface them with a capital letter Q so we know that it's for her and we can make sure she sees it for Q&A. You can also open, move, and resize any of the other widgets. If you'd like to tweet from the Twitter widget today, you might need to give it permission to access your account. The hashtag we're using today is Photoshop, all one word. If you should have any trouble with the event, please take a look at your help widget. If you continue to have trouble, just post it in the group chat and one of our staff will help you right away. For choppy audio or stalled visuals, please try refreshing your window. And remember, the best thing you can do for a good audio stream is to close any apps that could interfere. People always ask, so we'd like you to know we are recording today's webcast, and we will have the archive ready usually within 48 hours. And folks, at this time, it is my pleasure to turn the program over to Lesa for her presentation. Hello, Lesa.
Hi, Yasmina. Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining me here. So today we're going to talk about one of those features that works like magic. You know, once in a blue moon, Adobe adds a feature to Photoshop that literally is unbelievable in the way that it works. And that feature that we're going to be talking about today are the content-aware tools. Content-aware technology came around in CS4. And by the way, everything that I'm showing you today will work in CS5, CS6. I'm not going to show you anything that's specific to CC, so don't worry about that. Okay, so what does content-aware technology do? Well, that lets Photoshop analyze the image that you're working with, and it prioritizes different areas according to the colors that it finds and the detail in the image. For example, in the image that you're seeing on my screen right now, that big old blue sky would get a low priority, and the green trees and the people in the image would get a higher priority. The sand and the water would get a low priority, and so on and so forth. So Photoshop intelligently is prioritizing the content of your image in order not to harm the important bits, your focal point. So we're going to start out with one of the easiest ways to use content-aware technology, and that is with the spot healing brush. So what we're going to do is first create a new layer onto which we're going to use our spot healing brush. I'm a big fan of non-destructive editing because I don't like having to start over. That is bad news. I've got more fun things to do. So I like to edit non-destructively. So we're going to do all of our spot healing on a brand new layer. And this is a great tip for you even if you're not specifically using the content-aware technology. So we're going to create a new layer by trotting down to the bottom of our layers panel and clicking the Create a New Layer icon, and you can give that a quick double click, and we're going to cleverly name it People Be Gone. Now let's come over to the Tools panel, and the Spot Healing Brush lives in the Healing Brush tool set. So we're going to grab the spot healing brush. Next, we're going to trot up to the options bar, and you're going to make sure that this content aware radio button is turned on. The next thing you're going to do is turn on the sample all layers checkbox, because that makes Photoshop look through the currently active empty layer to the layer underneath it, which is where the actual pixels live. So if you forget to turn on that checkbox and you go clicking around with the content aware tool, Photoshop will, or the spot healing tool rather, Photoshop will squawk at you and say, hey, there's no pixels here. So if that happens, just remember to trot back up to the options bar and turn on that sample all layers checkbox. Now we're ready to mouse over to our image and start zapping people. And this is a whole lot of fun. I often recommend this for breakups, divorces, family reunions too are another great way to use this tool. So let me zoom in here just a little bit by pressing Command plus or Control plus on a PC, and then I'll click and hold my space bar and then drag to reposition my image, because the first guy we're going to get rid of is this dude right here. Now you can use the spot healing brush in one of two ways. You can either increase the brush size so that the dude fits inside of the round brush cursor, and you can do that by pressing the right bracket key on your keyboard. It's next to the P key, P for Paul McCartney, my favorite Beatle. And also the left bracket key goes down in brush size. So if we want to zap this guy, we can make the brush about yay big. And what Photoshop is going to do when we click is it's going to look at a pretty good swath of pixels around this guy, and it's going to try to intelligently fill in the inside of the brush cursor with surrounding pixels. So we're just going to give it a single click. Ta-da! I told you it was like magic. So let's press Command Z or Control Z to undo that. It's used every single time you click with a tool that's using content-aware technology. So pretty quickly, we could get rid of all these people that had the nerve to be on our dadgum beach when we were trying to take a picture. You can see it's doing an amazing job. And when I'm doing this for clients, I like to keep, I'm right-handed, so my right hand is on my mouse, and I like to keep two fingers of my left hand on those left and right bracket keys next to the P key on your keyboard, because that quickly allows me to change brush size while I'm cruising around and deleting all these awful people that got into my picture. Now let me zoom out a little bit. And we'll toggle the visibility of this layer off and on so you can appreciate the power of the spot healing brush using content-aware technology. So there's our before, and there's our after. So pretty amazing. Now your next question will be, well, what if I wanted to get rid of these tiki torches? Could you do that? Not a chance. Because the reason the spot healing brush is working so well in this image is that the area around the objects that we want to delete was kind of big. So the tiki torches, we could indeed remove this part, the lower part of the tiki torches where they're surrounded by sand. That would be no problem at all. But when we get up here around the trees, because we obviously want to keep those trees in the image, then things get a bit hairy. So again, it works really well if you've got quite a bit of free space around the object that you want to get rid of. So let's take a look at that on another image, a very common problem, that of power lines. And I'll zoom in here just a little bit. This is a shot that I got in Santorini, Greece, a few years back when I was teaching on a cruise ship. And I thought it was a nice picture, but these daggone power lines need to come out. So let's take a look at getting rid of those. What's the first thing we're going to do? Well, we're going to create a new empty layer onto which we're going to use our spot healing tool. So you can click the Add a New Layer icon at the bottom of the Layers panel and double-click to give it a name, Power Lines Be Gone. You can also use a keyboard shortcut to create a new layer, and Photoshop will give you a dialog box that gives you a naming opportunity. And that keyboard shortcut is Shift-Command-N on a Mac or Shift-Control-N on a PC. In Photoshop, there are always 6 ways to do the same thing. Seems like it anyway. Okay, so now we've got our photo here. Let's zoom in a little bit more by pressing Command plus or Control plus so we can see that offending power line. And we're going to come over to our Tools panel, activate the spot healing brush, trot up to the options bar, make sure content aware is turned on, make sure sample all layers is turned on. Now we're going to mouse over to our image, and you want to make the brush just a hair bigger than the thing you're trying to get rid of. Now in this case, we're going to click and drag with the brush. So click and drag, Photoshop marks the area that will be affected, and then when you release your mouse button, that's when Photoshop does the blending. And as you can see, it's pretty amazing. So now let's press and hold our space bar and then drag our mouse to reposition the image to the other offensive power line, and let's do the same thing. Go ahead and resize your brush if you need to using those bracket keys, and just click and drag to get rid of the power line. Works pretty well. Now I do have a problem area right here, and I'll zoom in just a little bit more and reposition. Several different things you could do at this point. You could keep having a go with the spot healing brush. Let's go ahead and just start clicking around and see how close we can get that to look. That's not too bad, but if you need to, you can always fine-tune the area to make it look realistic with a clone stamp tool. So let's just go ahead and add that to the equation. Let's go ahead and create another new empty layer onto which we're going to do our cloning. This time we'll use our keyboard shortcut, Shift-Command-N for new on a Mac, Shift-Control-N, new on a PC. So this one, we can call it Clone Stamp. I like to name my layers according to either the task that I'm doing or the tool that I'm using. That way when my layers panel gets really long in the tooth, I can tell what the heck's going on where, which is really useful. So now we can come over here to the Tools panel. We're going to click to activate the Clone Stamp tool. Now we need to make a change in the options bar, so let's trot up to the options bar and make sure that the sample layers menu is set to all layers, or the sample menu rather, this guy right here. Because again, that's going to make Photoshop look through the empty pixels of the currently active layer down below, as many layers as it needs to with all layers, to see where the pixels are. Now we can come over here to our image, and with the Clone Stamp tool, you need to tell Photoshop what area you want to copy over. Now there's no blending with the Clone Stamp tool. That'll be your next question. What's the difference between Clone Stamp and spot healing or healing brush? And the difference is blending. There's no blending with the Clone Stamp tool. It's a straight copy. So if you ever wanted to give, a loved one that third eye, that's how you get it done. So what I'm doing right now is I'm telling Photoshop the area I want to copy, and you do that by holding down a modifier key, and that is Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC. And you can see that when I release the Option or Alt key, I get my regular brush cursor, but as soon as I depress that key, it turns into a crosshair or a target. So you want to click once on the area that you want to copy, release that modifier key, mouse over to the area you need to fix, and Photoshop even gives you a preview of what that target area or sample point is going to look like should you click to copy it over. So now we have fixed our image. But as you can see, we had to use the spot healing brush set to content aware, and we had to do a tiny bit of cleanup with the Clone Stamp tool. So let's just do that one more time. I'll go ahead and delete all these layers. I'm just shift-clicking to activate them and then deleting them with the delete key. I swear to Thor, that was my favorite new feature back in CS4. As silly as that sounds, it's a real time saver. So now let's come back up to that original power line. We're going to create a new empty layer. Grab the spot healing brush from the Tools panel, make sure it's in content aware mode, turn on sample all layers, use our left and right bracket keys next to our P key on our keyboard, and click and drag to get rid of the power lines. I'm holding down the space bar to reposition my image while I'm zoomed in, and we're clicking and dragging over the other set of power lines. See, it did a better job this time. Further proof that it uses different math every single time. We've still got a little bit of a problem area down here next to that floating door, if you will. So let's go ahead and add another new layer. Switch to the Clone Stamp tool if you need to. Trot up to the options bar. Make sure that that sample menu is set to all layers. come back down to the image. Now we're going to press and hold the Option key on a Mac or Alt on a PC, and your cursor is going to turn into a crosshair. Mouse over to the area that you want Photoshop to copy from. Single click, release the modifier key. Now mouse over to the area that you need to fix. And when it looks good inside that cursor, it's a lovely little preview that you get. Boy, how handy is that? And then single click to copy. Not too hard, huh? So now let's take a look at a little bit more complicated image. So let's say this image is perfect for the cover of the magazine that you're creating, or etc. But you need room for text. So I've got a text layer here, a text group rather. So that's the text that I need to add to this image. But the text is really hard to read with that fence in the foreground. So let's use the spot healing brush set to content aware to get rid of that fence. I'll go ahead and turn off the visibility of my copy layer. Now what's the first thing we're going to do? Create a new empty layer onto which we're going to do our healing. So we can call this one Fence Be Gone. Come over to the Tools panel, grab the Spot Healing brush, trot it to the Options bar, make sure Content Aware is on and that Sample All Layers is on. This time we're going to go up in brush size by using that right bracket key. Boy, those keyboard shortcuts are so handy. There are a slew of different keyboard shortcuts you can use to affect brush size, but I'm a bit of a creature of habit, and I just love using those bracket keys. So now we're just painting over all the area that we want to get rid of. Now I'm doing this in one brush stroke. That does not mean you have to. In other words, you don't have to keep your mouse button depressed the whole time as you're painting. You could paint a little bit, release the mouse button, let it do the blending, and then paint a little bit more, etc. So when I release my mouse button, let's see how good of a job Photoshop does on getting rid of this fence. Ta-da! Seriously, it's wizardry. Until we can actually wish content gone from our images, this is the next best thing. So now we could also come over here and get rid of this pole right here and our dude. And you do need to watch out for repeating patterns. So if I zoom in a little bit and mouse over, I've got a little bit of a repeating pattern right here. But that's easily fixed. All you have to do is just keep clicking around and painting until your image looks good to you. Now we've got plenty of room for our copy. So another great use for this is taking the image that you have and turning it into the image that you need for whatever usage that you've got going on. So that is Content Aware used with the Spot Healing brush. So let's go ahead and open up some more images. I'll close these guys. Incidentally, I'm using keyboard shortcuts to close my images. Command W or Control W for window on a PC. And I'm triggering this button right here, Don't Save, by simply clicking the D button. I could trigger cancel by pressing C or save by pressing S. That's just a few more keyboard shortcuts for you. Now, let's take a look at another command that uses Content Aware Fill technology, and that is the Fill command. So we're going to start out with our little cow right here, and I'll show you the original image. So let's say we want to add some copy to the left side of that image, but we need to get rid of this cow right here. Could we do it with the Spot Healing brush? You could try. However, because this cow is so close to another object that we want to keep, cow number 2, we need to go about it a little bit different way. Otherwise, if we make our Spot Healing brush large enough to fit this cow in, then some of the other cow would get copied over, and nobody wants to repeat cow booty, cow tush. That would just be weird. So what we're going to do is use the Edit Fill command's Content Aware option. Now, unfortunately, you cannot do this on an empty layer. Thou must duplicate thouest layers in order to do this non-destructively. Because remember, we do not want to have to start over ever. So let's go ahead and duplicate the layer that we're going to affect by clicking to activate it and then using a keyboard shortcut, and that is Command J on a Mac or Control J on a PC. If you do not have an active selection on your screen, that command will duplicate an entire layer. And I remember the keyboard shortcut J, or Command J, or Control J rather, by thinking that I'm jumping that content up onto another layer. It's how I remember it. So now we're ready to figure out how to get rid of this cow right here. Well, the first thing you want to do is create a selection of the thing that you want to get rid of. So we'll just zoom in a little bit more by pressing Command plus or Control plus. And now let's create a selection of this cow. Well, since there's a pretty good amount of contrast between the cow and the grass, we can use one of Photoshop's Select by Color tools. So my favorite one is the Quick Selection tool. So you can grab that at near the top of your toolbox, the Quick Selection tool. Keyboard shortcut is W, or press Shift W to toggle between Magic Wand and Quick Selection. Both of these tools let you create a selection based on color. So basically, you click the color pixel that you want to select, and Photoshop looks at surrounding pixels and tries to select other pixels that are similar in color. You'll notice in my crosshair, or inside my brush cursor, I've got a crosshair. It's actually a plus sign. That's letting me know that this tool is currently in Add to Selection mode. So if I click and drag, Photoshop creates a selection based on color. Well, with that plus sign in the cursor, if I keep clicking or keep dragging, Photoshop is going to add to that selection. So that's what that little plus sign means. Now we need to select these skinny little cow legs, so I'm going to come down in brush size because the area that Photoshop grabs in its selection is directly proportional to the size of your brush. So since I'm trying to select skinny little cow toothpick legs, I want a little bitty brush. If I was trying to select this whole area of grass, then I could use a large brush. So that's a pretty good selection of the cow. But if I zoom in even further and use my space bar drag trick to mouse down, I can see that there's a little bit of the cow, got some cow bangs here, that are outside of my selection. So to avoid having a leftover cow outline, which would also be strange and creepy, let's expand this selection. Let's pop it out a little bit to catch a little bit of the grass, because really the grass is what we're trying to recreate inside this selection. So expanding your selection and including a little bit of the background will actually help Photoshop do a better job once we get over to the Edit Fill command. So how do you easily expand a selection? Trot up to the Select menu. Kind of makes sense because you're working with a selection, so you're going to go to the Select menu to fine-tune it. Come down to the Modify menu and choose Expand. Now this is a guessing game. How much do you want to expand the selection? I'm going to say by about 8 pixels. So see how that popped the selection out just enough? So now all of the cow and the little bangs and all that good stuff are inside our selection. So I'll zoom back out by pressing Command minus or Control minus on a PC. Now it's time to run the Edit Fill command. So let's trot up to the Edit menu, choose Fill. Move this dialog down so you can see it. The magic lives right here in the Use pop-up menu. So you're going to give it a click and you're going to choose Content Aware. And then click OK, and that's absolutely it. Now watch how good of a job this is going to do. Ta-da! No cow. Again, the reason it's doing such a great job is that we've got a good chunk of what I call free background area. It's not that it's empty, but there's nothing going on in here really. And so Photoshop has a better chance of making your deletion look more realistic. And now we're finished with the marching ant, so you could simply trot back up to the Select menu and choose Deselect. And again, if it doesn't look really great to you, so I've got a little bit of a problem area right here, you could press Command or Control Z to undo. You still got your selection, and then you could come back up to the Edit Fill command and do it again, because you're going to get a different result every single time you run this command. So to me, the second time around looks a little bit better. So do remember that you can have another go at it. Okay, so let's zoom back out a little bit. Choose Select, Deselect to get rid of our marching ants, or press Command D, Control D for Deselect on a PC. And now we've got plenty of room for our copy. Pork is good. Pork is fine. Eat more pork all the time. Cowsforchange.com. I made that up, obviously. So let's just have one more go at that. We'll turn off our copy, and we're going to delete our other layers. So now we're back at square one, yes? First thing we're going to do is to assess what we want to delete. The cow is really, or the thing we want to delete is really close to the thing we want to keep. Cow number 1 is close to cow number 2. If that's the case, then create a selection using any tool that you want. We're going to choose the quick selection tool because we've got good contrast between what we want to delete and what we want to keep. And again, you can click and drag with this quick selection tool, or you can single click with it. And to get the skinny cow legs into our selection, we need to use a really small brush, or Photoshop's just going to grab a whole bunch of other pixels and add them to our selection. Now that we've got a decent selection of our cow, we need to expand it in order to capture a little bit of the background so we don't get an outline left over. And I forgot to duplicate the layer. So let's Command D, Control D. Do as I say, not as I do. Step 1, duplicate your layer. Pressing Command J or Control J. Now come over with the quick selection tool or the selection tool of your choice. Depending upon what it is that you want to get rid of, you might be able to select it with one of the marquee tools or hand draw a selection with the lasso tool. It's up to you. Now let's expand that selection by trotting up to the Select menu and choosing Modify, Expand, and we'll just say 8 pixels is fine. Now we're ready to go back up to the Edit menu and choose Fill. And the magic lives right here in the Use Pop-Up menu. You're going to choose Content Aware and click OK. And that time did a much better job, at least looking at it on my screen. It looks better than it did a few seconds ago. But again, if you want to see, have another go at it, just press Command or Control Z to undo. You still got your selection. Just go back up to the Edit Fill command and have another go. And get rid of your marching ants by pressing Command D or Control D on a PC. Now let's take a look at another image here. Sometimes it won't really be clear to you which tool would do a better job, and that's certainly the case in this picture of the pyramids of Giza. So if we want to delete the shadow of this camel and his rider, we could have a go with the spot healing brush. So let's go ahead and add a new empty layer, grab the spot healing brush. It's in content aware mode already, sample all layers is turned on. So let's just go ahead and paint. It's a little bit hard to see Photoshop's highlighting the area you paint when you're dealing with a shadow here. So let's say that's pretty good. So now let's go ahead and let go of our mouse button and see if it did a good job. Well, what on earth? Where on earth is all this darkness coming from? So in this case, I would press Command Z or Control Z to undo. I could get rid of that empty layer. So let's go ahead and duplicate this layer and try the Edit Fill command. So Command J or Control J on a PC to duplicate your layer. Remember, you don't want to be doing this on the original layer because you've got nowhere to go after that if it doesn't do a good job. So let's create a selection. Easily done with the quick selection tool. There we go. I'll expand it a little bit. Choose Select, Modify, Expand. Let's say 8 pixels, that's fine. Now, let's come up to the Edit menu and choose Fill. Set the Use menu to Content Aware and click OK. And as you can see, that did a much better job. So there's a little bit of trial and error going on here, but that's all right, especially if you're billing by the hour, right? So now we can go ahead and press Command D for deselect or Control D for deselect, and we have a much better image of our pyramids of Giza. Now sometimes you're going to need to use both of those methods together to get rid of everything you want to get rid of in a picture. So let me go ahead and turn off the visibility of these layers, and I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see the pyramid. You know what surprised me most about the pyramids when I got to visit them in late 2008 is how dadgum big these boulders are. They are absolutely huge, and they're just very near, they're disintegrating, really. And it's just shocking. They're not smooth like you might think when you see pictures from a distance. So that was a real eye-opener for me. So let's go ahead and see what we can do to delete these people right here, as well as this little rock and this person right here. So what we can do is go ahead and create a new empty layer, grab our spot healing brush, content aware in the options bar, sample all layers is turned on, and let's just go ahead and see if we could paint these guys out. That should do it. Well, not really. Look what we've got here. Okay, that's a kind of messed up looking pyramid there. So the spot healing brush is not really going to work for us in that area. So let's go ahead and delete that layer. Now let's duplicate our layer because we're going to have a go with creating a selection and using content aware fill. So Command J, Control J on the PC. We can use our quick selection tool to create a selection of these people. Pop it out just a little bit using Select, Modify, Expand. Maybe 5 pixels will work here. Now we can come up to the Edit menu and choose Fill. Make sure Content Aware is set from the Use pop-up menu, and we get a little bit of a better job. Now again, it's going to change every single time you do this. Another way you can create maybe a bit of a tighter selection is to use Quick Mask mode. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and select a few of these people right here, and then I'm going to press the Q key to pop into Quick Mask mode. And the Quick Mask mode is a great way to visually paint selections onto your image. So the way I have my system set up is that the red overlay of Quick Mask mode is showing me the mask. So if you're following along at home, let's go ahead and double click this Quick Mask mode icon. It lives almost at the very bottom of your tools panel. Give it a double click, and just to make sure that your options are set up like mine. So make sure that color indicates masked areas. That way you get the same results that you're seeing here on the screen. Go ahead and click OK. Press Q to go back into Quick Mask mode. Now, while I'm viewing the image in this manner, I can use the regular brush tool to paint my selection onto these other people. So let's press B to switch to the regular brush tool. And now as I paint, I'll go down in brush size, I'm actually affecting my selection. So painting with white takes away from the mask, and painting with black adds to the mask. So this allows me to be a bit more precise with my selection, hopefully to produce better results when we use the Edit Fill command. So the painting metaphor works really well for me. It feels comfortable. So when you get finished painting your selection, press Q again, and you're back to your regular selection. So now we can trot back up to the Edit menu, choose Fill, make sure it's set to Content Aware. And so for this particular spot, it's not doing a great job. It did earlier, I promise. So let's just undo that, pop back into Quick Mask mode, affect our selection a little bit more. Hopefully we can get something that looks good. Okay, now let's try that. Pop back out of Quick Mask mode, Edit, Fill. There we go. See? Different results every single time you use this. So now we can come over here to the other areas that need fixing. And these you can easily fix with a spot healing brush. So let's just go ahead and add another empty layer. Name it Spot Healing. Go grab our Spot Healing brush. Make sure it's set to Content Aware, Sample All Layers. Come down to the offending bits, and you can see that the Spot Healing brush does a great job on those areas. And you could even come over here and use it to fine-tune this area over here to make it look a little bit more realistic. So that just gives you an idea of how you might use these tools in conjunction with each other on a real-world image. You know, so oftentimes instructors use these perfect images, and you're like, oh my God, of course it works because your image is absolutely perfect. But hopefully you can see the different steps you might have to go through to use this technology on your own images. It is a bit of a trial and error, but if you have patience and a nice frosty beverage at your desk, you can get through it, I promise you. So now let's talk about a few other tools in Photoshop that use Content Aware. And we are going to have time for questions at the end. I absolutely promise you. So I'm going to open up these 3 images, and this time we're going to use yet another tool that uses content-aware technology, and that is the patch tool. Now this thing that I'm about to show you was new in CS6. Okay, so if you're not running CS6, this bit isn't going to work, but everything else I showed you I believe works in CS5. So I'll show you our original image by toggling the visibility off of the layer I made for you here. So there's our before, there's our after. Pretty amazing, huh? Look at that, before, after. And arguably this is kind of fun just to sit there and do that. Not really. So let's go ahead and delete the layer that I made for you. This time we're going to remove this little boy using the patch tool set to content aware. And how is this different from what we've been doing so far? Well, when you use the patch tool in content aware mode, you can tell Photoshop exactly which part of the image you want to be used for the patch. So you'll see how it works here in just a second. The first thing we're going to do is create a new empty layer onto which we're going to do our patching. And then we're going to come over here to our healing brush tool set and choose the patch tool. Next, we're going to trot up to the options bar, and this is the bit that's new in CS6 right here, is a pop-up menu for the patch tool. You want to put it in content aware. Leave this adaptation menu alone. We're going to talk about it in just a second. And then you're going to turn on sample all layers, again making Photoshop look through the currently active layer to what's underneath it. Now let's go ahead and click and drag while holding down your mouse button to create a selection. Now a little known fact is that you do not have to do this kind of hand-drawn selection madness. There's no reason that you couldn't start out with a quick selection tool and then switch to the patch tool. So we'll look at doing that when we repeat this image here in just a second. So now we've got a selection drawn around our superhero, and because I've done it 100 times on this particular image, I was sure to include a little bit of the background around our little superhero here. Again, just like on the cow image, it gives Photoshop a better shot at making this deletion look realistic. Once you have a selection around your object, you're going to click and drag within the selection. So I just clicked. I'm holding down my mouse button inside the selection or the marching ants. And now I'm going to drag that selection over to the area of the image that I want Photoshop to use for the patch. So see how you're choosing the area that Photoshop is copying pixels from instead of Photoshop just deciding what to use on its own. So you want to make sure if you're dealing with a horizon, you want to get it straight. Otherwise, things will be really, really odd. So as you can see, I'll press Command D or Control D. Photoshop did an amazing job. So let's go ahead and delete that layer and have another go at it. We're going to create a new empty layer onto which we're going to do our patching. Now this time, let's use the Quick Selection tool to make a selection, shall we? So let's trot up here. And again, the Quick Selection tool just creates a selection based on the colors you paint across. And because we've got a good amount of contrast between the little boy and the background, this tool works really well. But as you can see, Photoshop isn't selecting anything. Why is that? I'm on an empty layer. What's the fix? Trot up to the options bar, turn on sample all layers. If you create your selection before you create the new empty layer, you wouldn't have to do that. So here we've got our selection. I'm going to go down in brush size to capture the legs. And then in this instance, I'm having to tweak this selection a little bit more. But what I could do is pop into quick mask mode. I can also put this tool in subtract from selection mode by pressing and holding the Option key or Alt on a PC. And then you can paint to exclude areas from your selection. But you could also pop over to quick mask mode, then press B to grab the brush tool, and then just paint to fine tune your selection. So painting with black is going to add to the mask. Painting with white, let's press X to flip-flop our color dip so we're painting with white. Painting with white subtracts from the mask. That's what we want with our current quick mask settings. So this just gives you an idea of the different ways that you can create a selection, because arguably some selections are going to be difficult to make, more difficult to make than others. Again, I'm making sure to include a little bit of the background, and I'm pressing X to flip-flop my color chips, depending upon what I want to do. So if you've got your quick mask mode set up like I do, like I showed you a moment ago, then you want the background to be red, and your object that you're trying to delete, you want that to be white or, full color. So now let's press Q to pop back out of quick mask mode. Now we're ready to switch to the patch tool. So now we can come over here to the healing brush tool set and choose patch. We've already got our selection. We've already got content aware set up, sample all layers. Click and drag within the item you want to delete while you're holding down your mouse button, and then release your mouse button when you are finished. Now this time, see, we got a little bit of an outline left over. So in that case, I would deselect, or I would undo rather. Okay, so undo gets my selection back. But I could undo another step. Really, it's stepping backward. And that keyboard shortcut is Command Option Z on a Mac, or Control Alt Z on a PC. Command Option Z on a Mac, just keep tapping the Z and it will step you backward in time, or Control Alt Z, keep tapping Z on a PC. And once you get back to your selection, then I probably just pop it out using that Select, Modify, Expand trick that we did earlier. And I see I've got a little bit of a selection over here on this little boy that I didn't realize that I had. So let's pop into quick mask mode by pressing Q, grab the brush tool by pressing B, go up in brush size with our keyboard shortcuts here, and while painting with black, we can make sure that we don't have a selection in a part of an image that we don't want to have selected. Press Q to pop out of it again. Now we're ready to switch to the patch tool, click and drag, and Photoshop did a better job. So as you can see, several different ways to go about doing this. Now let's take a look at this on a little bit more complicated image. Okay, so the image we used before works really well. It's like the perfect image. This, not so much the perfect image. So what we're going to do is get rid of this little girl, and this little boy right here. So I'm going to scoot over a little bit so you can see the whole image. First thing we want to do, create a new empty layer onto which we're going to do our patching. And we'll name this one lower left, because we're going to need to do this on two different layers. Now let's just go ahead and have a go with the patch tool, or again, you can use the quick selection tool or any selection tool of your choice. And I'm just making sure to include a little bit of the background, and then I'm coming all the way around the image. There we go. The patch tool, when you're drawing a selection with it, works just like the lasso tools. So now we've got patching content aware mode, sample all layers is turned on, click and drag to the area that you want Photoshop to use for the fix. And then release your mouse button. Now I'm going to zoom in and scoot over, and now we're going to talk about this adaptation menu. You can think of this as a pickiness menu. How picky is Photoshop being when it is copying and pasting and blending those pixels? How much blending do you want? Let's click on this menu, and you're going to be able to see how the area inside my selection changes as I use this pop-up menu. Not very many people realize you can use this after you've already done the patch. It's a total guessing game if you try to use this menu before you do the patch, because you have no idea what the patch is going to look like. So use it afterwards while you still have your active selection on the screen. So watch how that area changes. So straight from the factory, Photoshop is using a medium amount of blending. Okay, so let's see what very loose gives us. Choosing very loose just gives Photoshop, permission to do a blending free-for-all. Blend as much as you need to, Photoshop. But to me, that looks a little bit better. So now let's choose loose, which is a little less blending than very loose, but still quite a bit of blending. There's medium again. Looks a little blurry around the edges. Now when you come up into strict, that's not very much blending at all. So let's see what that looks like. still a little blurry in some areas. And now let's look at very strict. So to me, loose looked better than anything. And that is going to differ on an image-by-image basis. And there's no set rule for using that menu. You're simply going to have to do the patch. Before you deselect, trot through all the options in that menu and see which one does a better job for you. Okay, now let's deselect and come over here to the other area that we want to do our zapping on. Again, we're going to create another new layer. So we're going to name this one lower right. And again, with the selection tool of your choice or the patch tool, if you're brave enough to try a freehand drawing selection. Then we're going to draw a selection around the item we want to get rid of. Now we're going to click and drag inside of that selection. Click and hold down your mouse button. And if we mouse up, we're going to get into trouble here. So why don't we use that big old patch of free space, free grass that we've got over here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to release my mouse button about right here, and then we'll zoom out and see how good of a job Photoshop did. Now it's time to trot through our adaptation menu. So here's very loose. Doesn't look too bad. I think I could work with that. Here's loose. Here's medium. That looks pretty good. Here's strict, less blending, and very strict. So depending upon what you're trying to get rid of in your image, one of these methods will look better than the other. To me, very loose looks better on this one. Get rid of your marching ants. Now you can go back in with the spot healing tools on another empty layer or the clone stamp tool and fine-tune the couple of little blurry areas that we've got left right here. But I hope you can see how amazing that is. So I'll just toggle all those off so we can see our original again by Option or Alt-clicking the visibility eye to layer that you want to remain visible. So there's the before, there's the after. Pretty amazing stuff going on with this content-aware technology. And again, it's perfect for turning the image that you have into the image that you need. For example, the original image in this design had another bunny right there. But let's say you needed room for copy. Then this is a great way to get rid of that other bunny in order to make room for your copy. Now let's take a look at another tool, and that is Content Aware Move. This is absolutely amazing. So we'll take a peek at it on this image right here. This is a real easy one. So here's our before, and here's our after. Also, again, lots of fun, not really. So we're going to create a new empty layer. Basically, the process is exactly the same as the patch tool. So we're going to call this one Chair Move. Come over here to the Healing Brush tool set, and this time we're going to choose Content Aware Move. And that one was new in CS6. Works exactly the same way as the patch tool. We're going to draw a freehand selection, or you could start out with a selection tool of your choice. You just need to select the thing you want to move. Make sure you get a little bit of the background area in your selection. Make sure that this tool is set to mood mode because it's got an extend mode too that you can use for like making buildings taller than they were. It doesn't work very well, so I'd stay away from it. But the move mode works pretty well. There's our same adaptation menu again, and there's our sample all layers, so make sure to turn that on. Now we're just going to click and drag within the selection, and we're going to drag the item to where we want it to be. And as long as you've got a good chunk of background space around the thing you're moving and you don't move it very far, so there's no way in Asgard we could take this chair from the far right side and move it to the far left side. It's never going to work. So I think this tool should be called Content Aware Scoot, to be honest. Content Aware Scoot. So we'll just take a look at that one more time. So what do we start out with? We will create a new empty layer onto which we're going to do our scooting. Grab the Content Aware Move tool, lives in the Healing Brush tool set. Make sure the mode menu is set to move. Make sure sample layers is turned on. Freehand draw selection around the thing you want to move. Click and drag within the selection, and when you release your mouse button, Photoshop is going to do the moving for you. Pretty amazing. Okay, now the last tool that I want to talk about is content-aware scale. And this is a fabulous tool for, well, to be honest, for creating part of an image that wasn't there, also for moving the focal points in your image closer together. Sounds crazy, but let's take a look at some of these examples. I'll zoom in here. The original image had these people farther apart. So there's the original, and that's what we're going to create. So let's say that you need this picture to fit inside a certain area, but you can't crop the picture to get that done. What you really need to do is move these two bicycle riders closer together. Well, content-aware scaling can get that done. So how do you use it? Well, let's go ahead and duplicate our original layer so that we don't harm our original image. And now what we're going to do is trot up to the Edit menu and choose Content-Aware Scale. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see our full bounding box of free transform. So you're going to grab any of the side handles and watch what happens. Actually, let me turn off that one for you. There we go. Edit. So you can actually see what's going to happen. As we drag the side handle to the left, look what's happening. Our people are scooting closer together. Pretty amazing, huh? Now, if you do it too much, you're going to create some really freaky looking stick people, and I don't advise that. But if you need to scoot these guys just a little bit closer together, you can absolutely get it done using this technology. Likewise, if you need them to be further apart, you can do that too and drag to the right. So let's look at that on another image here. Here's our original. Let's duplicate it with Command or Control J. Turn off the visibility of the original one. Now let's trot up to the Edit menu and choose Content Aware Scale. Now you'll notice that in the previous image, our people were kind of getting squished or stretched. Well, if you make sure to turn on this little stick person figure in the options bar, Photoshop will look for skin tones in your image, and it'll try not to squish or squash those skin tones. So just make sure that's turned on. And here again, let's say we want to fit this picture into a certain size frame, but we can't really crop it to fit the frame because maybe we'd crop out Dad. What we really need to do is move these people closer together. So choose Edit, Content Aware Scale, and then grab any of those side handles, and as you drag that handle rather, Photoshop is affecting the image. So let's just grab the handle on the left-hand side. So pretty amazing stuff, right? The only problem is we've got a little bit of the boy is disappearing here. So we're going to take a look at how to fix that in just a second. So again, this particular tool or command rather, you want to use it in small doses. So let's take a look at another usage. Let's say you need to use this image, but you need this background to be wider because you need to place text in that area. Well, how the heck would you do that? Same exact way. Let's go ahead and duplicate our background layer to make it editable. And now let's grab the crop tool and let's just give ourselves a little bit more space on either side of this image. Now let's give Content Aware Scale a go. Choose Edit, Content Aware Scale. This time I'm going to make sure my Protect Skin Tones button is turned on, and I'm going to hold down the Option key on a Mac or Alt on a PC. That way when I drag one of these corner handles, both sides of the image is affected. See how we're creating more background? Now we do get to a point where our dude starts getting wider, but what you can do if that happens is just stop. When you can widen this image as far as you can go without distorting your focal point, press return. Now do it again. Go back to the Edit menu, choose Content Aware Scale, make sure your Protect Skin Tones is on, and as we Option or Alt click to drag those side handles, see how we're not getting the stretching that we got a moment ago? And before very long, you can create the edges of that background, expand them as much as you need to. So there is one more trick that I want to show you, and all of these items are, or all these techniques rather, are stepped out in step-by-step gloriosity with screenshots in Photoshop, the Missing Manual. So I do encourage you to pick that up. The last thing I want to show you, and then we can take some questions, is what to do when your focal point starts getting squished and squashed. And we're going to create an alpha channel. This is kind of advanced, so for those of you who've never used an alpha channel, just hang on to your chair. It'll be over in a minute. So what we're going to do is, let's say we need this picture to be a certain size, so we need to create more of the background area. But we're going to need to protect our people because they're going to get squished and squashed. So how do we make our canvas size larger to a specific measurement? Well, we are going to go up to first we're going to double-click our background layer to make it editable. Then we're going to come up to the image menu and choose canvas size. And let's say that we know that this image needs to be, maybe about 13 by, 8.25 or so. And we'll click OK. Zoom out. Now we've got some room to work with. I'll move my image down to the bottom left corner. Now what I want to do is create more free space over here. Say this is going in a promotional brochure or whatever for this band, and they need room for text. And they also need more sky up here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a go at it with content-aware scale, but you can see pretty quickly that we've got stretched out hair, and if we drag this bounding handle up, then we get stretched out people, so that's bad. So how do we protect them? With an alpha channel. So what we're going to do is pop into quick mask mode real quick, grab our brush tool, and actually there's a faster way to do it. Let's just grab the quick selection tool, and we'll just create a selection of the things that we want to protect, and we can fine tune it with quick mask. Easier to use fine-tuning, easier to use quick mask for fine-tuning than it is for creating the actual selection. So real quickly we could come in here and protect our dudes and just press the X key to flip-flop between painting with black and painting with white. And if you've got your quick mask mode set up like I do, like we looked at earlier in the webinar, then you want the area you want to protect to be in full color and everything outside of that to be in this red overlay. Now we're not going to be able to increase the height of this image much because there's just not that much grass down here for Photoshop to duplicate. But anyway, now we can pop back out of quick mask mode. Now we're going to come over to the channels panel. We're going to click the little icon at the very bottom. It looks like a circle within a square. Now we're going to get rid of our marching ants because we don't need them anymore. Command or Control D. Then we're going to come back to the Layers panel, back up to the Edit menu, choose Content Aware Scale, and this time from the Protect menu at the top of your screen, you're going to choose that alpha channel. And what's going to happen here, I'll zoom in a little bit, is that Photoshop is not going to mess with the areas that you protected. So now I can make this image wider and taller. I still get a little bit of distortion in the guitar area down here, but you could easily fix that using the Clone Stamp tool. So I hope that gives you an idea of the myriad ways that you can use this technology. I do want to let you know that I have a full-day free class coming up on this stuff on creativelive.com. You can go to the URL lesa.in/CL for Creative Live videos. So lesa.in/CL videos, and you'll see all my courses. But this is a full day on content aware and cloning, and this is going to take place October 14th. And you just watch it in your web browser. It's free while it's live. So on that note, we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Lesa. What a fantastic presentation. And yes, we have a bunch of questions that have come in. All right, we'll just take them in the order they came in. Leslie is asking, how do you determine whether to use the brush stroke or the round brush?
How do you determine whether to use the brush stroke or the round stroke? She may be talking about how do you determine whether you're going to single click or click and drag with the spot healing brush. And if that's the question, it just depends on which one of them does a better job. If the thing you want to delete is pretty small and it easily fits within the round brush cursor, I'd try just single clicking. Make your brush just a hair bigger than the thing you want to fix. Let's say it's a blemish on a face, then I would use just click. But if it's not really a circular shaped thing that you're trying to delete, then you might try clicking and dragging with the spot healing brush instead.
Thank you. Next question here from Patrick. Is there a way to turn on content aware and sample all layers in preferences?
Negative, but that's a great question.
Okay,
but the great thing is that once you turn on sample all layers in the options bar for any of those tools that has that setting, it stays on because settings in the options bar are sticky. They stay changed till you change them back. So I just leave it on.
Thank you. Let's see. Joseph would like to know, what is the function of the aligned checkbox in the tool options for the clone stamp tool?
Oh, that's a bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but great question. That would send us down a 15-minute rabbit hole.
Rick is asking, edit/fill is grayed out. Is the layer selected? Maybe he couldn't see it.
So he's saying that the edit, I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you repeat it one more time?
Rick, if you can clarify that just a little bit, that would be great. Let's just move on to the next one here from Randy. Randy would like to know, sorry about that. He says cannot find the patch toolbar in Windows version CS6.
Well, it should be there. So if he chooses the patch tool, then he should see patch content aware right there. I believe it came along in CS6. I could be wrong though, but I think it did come along in CS6.
Okay. And Heidi would like to know, what about moving content from one image to another image?
That's a great question. You can do that using the clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool can actually clone from one document to another. But to be honest, it'd probably be easier just to copy and paste that image into the Photoshop document and use some of the techniques that we've used here. But you can use the clone stamp tool to clone between documents if you just don't want to combine them within the same Photoshop document.
Great. And Judy would like to know, Lisa, will you be updating Photoshop CC ebook as Adobe makes changes?
That's a really great question. O'Reilly is in the process of figuring out exactly how we're going to handle that now that Photoshop is being updated quarterly. So the short answer is I don't know, but I'm certain O'Reilly is working on a solution, and as soon as they know what we're going to do, then we can make that public.
Perfect. Let's see. Randy is asking, can you select only part of the photo for scaling and not have the rest of the image affected?
To do that, you would have to separate those bits onto different layers. The Content-Aware Scale is a layer-based tool, so you'd have to split that up on different layers, split the image up on different layers.
Okay, another question here asking, what is Puppet Wrap?
Puppet Warp is a fantastic tool for changing positions of anything in your photo. Let's say you've got, or like the band picture that we're looking at right now. If I wanted this guy's arms to be up in the air, I could actually do that with Puppet Warp. It involves creating a selection of the thing that you want to warp or move around, popping that selection onto its very own layer, and then using Puppet Warp to manipulate those pixels. And I have a wonderful tutorial on that. It's in Photoshop, the Missing Manual, and it's stepped out in step-by-step glory with screenshots. A pretty complicated tool, but you can use it to do some amazing things.
Perfect. And Lisa, if you're okay, I'm going to push out your slide here that has your contact information with, with the Creative Live classes and how to contact you. We've got several people asking if they could one more time have the link to your Creative Live classes. So folks, it's on your screen there how to how to access that. So hopefully you can see that. It's lesa.in/clvideos. So we'll make that available there. Let's see here. Randy would like to know, Lesa, do you ever get to the Mobile, Alabama area for classes?
I don't, but you can have me virtually there in your web browser on Creative Live. I'm from Texas, so family driving vacations spent some time in Alabama. So thanks for tuning in, Mobile.
Let's see here. Lesa would like to know, how did you make the layer in Alpha Layer in the last example?
So what we did was we created a selection, and then I'll just do a selection real quick. Created a selection with any tool of your choice, and then come over to the Channels panel and click that circle within a square icon at the bottom of that panel. It's the second icon, and that creates an alpha channel. They don't print. They don't take up any space in your document, but it's a great way to, with Content-Aware Scale, tell Photoshop, hey, please don't mess with this particular area. And that is also stepped out in Photoshop, the missing manual.
Perfect. And with that, I'm not seeing any additional questions. There's lots of folks saying thank you. They really enjoyed the class today, and it looks like many of them are going to be joining us on your next webcast, which is October 8th. So, folks, that leads me right into letting you know, yes, please, we push out the link to you all. Lesa is going to do another webcast for O'Reilly on October 8th, and she's going to talk about practical effects. So please do register for that, and you can spend some more time with us and get some great learning from it. Also, we'd like to let you know we did push out a code to you all, which will save you some money on all of Lesa's books. We've got the ebook versions and the print versions as well, so please do take advantage of that. The link is there. It'll take you to all the books. Use that code. Get the ones you need, and boy, oh boy, as you can see just from today's class, there is so much information that Lesa has, so it's really going to help you with your day-to-day and all your projects. And let's see. Lesa, is there anything additional you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Thanks for joining in, and I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend.
Excellent. And with that, folks, we're going to say a really big thank you to Lesa for her outstanding and very informative webcast today.
Thank you, guys.
That attended, we thank you so much, and thank you for your great comments. And for those of you that sent in questions, thank you for those, because having your questions just adds so much more to our event, so we really do appreciate it. And on that last note, again on your screen is Lesa's contact information, so you can find her additional events and classes, as well as how to reach her on Twitter and on Facebook and Google+. Folks, this will conclude our event today. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.